From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast, episode number 923, June 5th, 2025. It's a Thursday, and it's our final show for the week today. So we've got a lot to talk about. I mean, a lot. There's some stories that we buried earlier in the week that we're going to touch on today, and some stories where we're going to dig deep. It's going to be a packed show, so let's get right into it. Join me for a coffee cup cheers, y'all, because I can't wait. Here we go. Coffee cup cheers. My double espresso. Look at that. Again, just if you haven't had good espresso, please reach out to me and let me introduce you to some amazing coffee. You'll never drink black coffee again after having good espresso. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. Smoking. Love it. All right, so good. Like, I want to have the whole thing while talking to y'all, but we've got a lot to talk about. So Lee Enterprises, the newspaper publisher, went through a ransomware attack earlier this year. We talked about it extensively here on the show. Well, they finished their forensic analysis of the impact of the ransomware attack. And so now they're notifying nearly 39,779 people about the fact that their information was obtained, including their social security numbers. This information was submitted to the Maine Attorney General's office this week after the completion of the investigation. The Keelin ransomware gang took credit for the attack, claiming to have stolen 350 gigabytes worth of files. The criminals at the time threatened to leak the data unless ransomware was there. Lee Enterprises offered victims of the crime 12 months of free credit monitoring and identity protection services. It's unclear whether that data became available on the dark web as of yet, so we'll see that there. The FBI is saying that the Play ransomware gang has had made roughly 900 victims over the past 3 years, according to a new advisory by the U.S. and Australian government. CISA FBI, the Australian Cybersecurity Center, released an advisory on the TTPs observed in Play ransomware attacks back in December of 2023. On Wednesday, the agencies updated the advisory to add additional TTPs seen in newer attacks, noting that the groups become the most active ransomware gang in 2024. And as of May of 2025, that's last month, folks, there's approximately 900 victims for this ransomware actor. Initial access brokers linked to the Play gang, as well as other ransomware groups, have been observed exploiting 3 vulnerabilities in the RMM, Remote Monitoring and Management Software Simple Help, according to the advisory. Those CVEs are 2024 57727, 57728, and 57726. When chained together, they elevate privileges to admin and execute arbitrary code, compromising the entire system. The updated advisory also warns that Play's operators recompile the ransomware for each attack, which does allow them to evade detection. Some of the victims, the authoring agency says, receive unique gmx.de or web.de emails for communication. Some of them are even contacted by phone for extortion purposes. The agencies warn of an ESXi variant of the Play ransomware that shuts down all VMs and encrypts files related to them using a per-file keys that are randomly generated. Again, much more difficult to recover from those types of specific attacks. So when the FBI issues this type of warning, I look at this and go, what's in my environment and what's in my supply chain that could be at risk? And then you start to play the resilience game. If this happened, you kind of go through a mini tabletop exercise. You probably get your teams together. Is what I would do in my case. I'd get, some of my leaders together and some of my key, hands-on keyboard players, and I'd, spend an hour going through some of the TTPs and IOCs, identifying what exists in our environment, if anything does exist. And if it doesn't exist and it's a supply chain, then it's a TPRM with the product and the business owner of that supply chain company to kind of go through what happens if this goes down. What's the impact to the business? What's a backup plan if you can't use them? How difficult would it be to replace them in our supply chain? Those are all valid questions to be had whenever you see something like this, if you're not directly impacted by it. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, here's the deal. We talked yesterday about the fact that 2 Trump nominees now have bipartisan support to lead CISA and the National Cyber Director. Great. I'd like a strategy around CISA from the White House, because I see budget proposed cuts more and more to CISA. CISA's already lost 1,000 people, down to around 2,200 from buyouts, early retirements, and some layoffs. This figure doesn't include private contractors, many of whom stopped working for CISA following the abrupt cancellation of their contracts. More than 600 employees have left CISA as part of the second and most recent round of departures, which were part of what the Department of Homeland Security calls its workforce transition program. That number is closer to 700, according to people familiar with the matter. Look, here's the deal. You want to save the federal government money. Lovely. Thank you so much for doing that. As a taxpayer, I appreciate it. I also know that cybersecurity is a zero-sum game. And given the past kind of missteps by the leaders of the agencies, why are the employees paying the price? And what's the strategy around CISA? After all, the administration, Trump 1.0, was the administration that created CISA, that believed in CISA. Trump appointed Chris Krebs, a bad decision, but nonetheless, he appointed him. So what's the deal now? Are we losing track of why we created CISA? CISA cannot be a lean organization. CISA requires people with various sets of skills to help bridge the gap between federal agency and private and public collaboration. Those set of skills come from a specific group of people. What's the strategy? DHS Secretary, no. President Trump, what's the strategy? You owe the people of this country a direction for this agency. We deserve these answers, and we sure need to get them. So I want to see what's happening there, because the world around us is not getting any safer. Here's a prime example of that. The main intelligence directorate of Ukraine, the GUR of the Ukraine Ministry of Defense, claiming it hacked Tupolev, the Russian aerospace and defense company, which is developing Russia's supersonic strategic bombers. According to Ukrainian news outlet, a source within the GUR said the military intelligence breached Tupolev's systems and stored 4.4 gigabytes of classified information, including personal data of Tupolev personnel, internal communications, including messages exchanged by the company's management, procurement documents, resume of engineers and designers, and minutes of closed meetings. So it doesn't appear that they got anything on the weapons systems, or at least they're not advertising if they did. While the source didn't disclose when the systems were breached, it said the HUR hackers were inside Topolev's network for a long time, sufficient to collect other information that could be used in future operations to compromise other organizations in Russia's defense sector. The value of the data obtained is hard to overstate, according to the Kiev Post. So, you know, what's gonna, dude, like, this is the kind of stuff. Russia and Ukraine are escalating, and Ukraine is you know, kind of like Ali late in the game. You know, you think Ali's almost knocked out, and Frazier had him, and then Ali, you know, rope-a-dope, taken until, you know, Joe Frazier tired himself out, and then Ali went for the knockout. Could Ukraine knock out Russia? No, but could it strategically change the way those peace negotiations are done? Absolutely. Could Russia use chemical or non-conventional warfare against Ukraine? If Putin feels like he's losing this, he might. That's the danger with Putin. And so I did a whole article about that. That's available on our CyberHubPodcast.com. Putin's 25 years of reign and kind of some of his points of view. You can go check that out for free at CyberHubPodcast.com. All right, an Iran-linked hacking group has been attributed to a new set of cyber attacks targeting Kurdish and Iraqi government officials last year. The activity tied to a threat group ESET tracks as Bladed Feline, which is assessed with medium confidence to be a subcluster of Oil Rig, a known nation-state threat actor for Iran, has been active since 2017. The group is developing malware for maintaining and expanding access within organizations in Iraq and the KRG. So if you're asking yourself why, well, the vacuum that happened in 2003 during the overthrow of Saddam Hussein in Iraq by the US, by us specifically, was the fact that we weakened the one guy who was keeping Iran at bay. The Iranians feared Saddam Hussein. And the moment he was knocked off, Iran stepped in. Iran is responsible for a lot of death and a lot of arming in Iraq of militias that fought the U.S. Military for years there. Iran's not a friend. It never will be our friend, irregardless to whatever deal. Iran sees the U.S. as the big Satan. They chant that every Friday. That's part of their curriculum for their kids. It's indoctrinated in them. And so them targeting the Iraqi government and the Kurds are historically American allies. The Iraqi government is slowly walking away from Iran, understanding the kind of shift after October 7th, the Iran losing Hezbollah, losing Hamas, and then losing Assad in Syria. So cyber warfare is what Iran still deploys successfully. This is one of those cases as well, something to keep an eye on there. China issued warrants on Thursday to 20 Taiwanese people, saying it carried out hacking missions in its Chinese mainland on behalf of the island's ruling party, while banning dealings with a Chinese company whose owners mainland authorities called Hardcore Taiwan Independent Supporters. Again, police in the southern manufacturing hub of Guangzhou said that they were led by a man named Ning Naui on behalf of Taiwan's independence-leaning Democratic Progressive Party, but didn't identify their alleged crimes. Meanwhile, China's government said all commercial contact has been banned with the Sichuan International Company, which it says are led by businessman Puma Xin and his father, calling the two-man independence supporter. Message to China: Taiwan's an independent country. Regardless of what you say, it's an independent country. The moment you go and try to absolve that independence, I think is the moment that's going to be really, really bad for China. Overall, we'll drag the world into World War III, but will be the collapse of China thereafter. The mainland side will never allow enterprises related to diehard Taiwan independence supporters to seek profit in the mainland. So they're using essentially the economic warfare there as well. And you kind of see how China treats hackers. Maybe we should take a book out of China and do the same here. Google's warning that cyber criminals are targeting the Salesforce apps to steal data and extort companies. The criminal operation known as the COM has stricken companies into giving them widespread access to popular Salesforce tools, allowing them to steal sensitive data and move through other parts of the organization, according to researchers from Google. The criminals are exploiting Data Loader, a legitimate Salesforce tool designed to help companies import, export, and update large trenches of data within the Salesforce platform. The tool also allows for integration with other apps. Austin Larson, the principal threat analyst at Google's TAG, told Recorded Future News that the current campaign involves versions of Salesforce tool, has targeted about 20 organizations, and is still ongoing. They've received the designation of UNC 6040. The campaign involves impersonating IT support personnel over the phone, at times even tricking employees into installing modified Salesforce-connected apps, often disguised as versions of data loaders. The tactic gives the criminals extensive access to exfiltrate sensitive data directly from the victim's Salesforce environment and allows them to move laterally through the organization's other cloud services and internal corporate networks. So the COM is also known as the Community. It's loosely affiliated with a cyber criminal group best known for its English-speaking members and for frequently targeting companies by posing as IT support. And because they speak English so well, no one ever questions it. It's English vishing. And so there's that there. And then they warn that the given extended the time frame between initial compromise and extortion, it's possible there's many victims downstream that we don't know about yet. ClickFix is not just a malware, but a very successful social engineering technique, and it's relying on MFA verification fatigue and fake CAPTCHA pages to silently install malware, according to researchers who've analyzed ClickFix that uses a fake Cloudflare humanness check. Cloudflare check is called Turnstile and has been replaced with earlier Cloudflare CAPTCHA process in keeping with industry-wide migration towards frictionless security. So again, they're using our own security against us. And years ago on the show, 5 or 6 years ago on the show, I said just that. I said, these tools that we're using will eventually become the way attackers get into our environment. Whatever we do today, they'll eventually know how to manipulate to make it happen in the future. It's now happening with these ClickFix attacks. You got to make sure to follow up with these. The UAE Central Bank, my old friends, assalamu alaikum bil Imarat, has issued a directive asking financial institutions to eliminate weak authentication message methods, including SMS and email one-time passwords from all banking. They've got to comply by March 2026. Many banks still rely on legacy systems. I mean, back in my day, we had a token, right, that you had to use for one-time login and doing bank transfers and so forth. But the UAE Central Bank really does take security extremely, extremely seriously. That's from personal knowledge. So good for them to make this move. They're finally reading Roger Grimes's books. Speaking of Roger, if you missed the episode on Friday. It'll re-air on our CyberHub Podcast LinkedIn page tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. So go tune in to that. The FTC is imploring Congress to strengthen children's online privacy protection laws. The FTC chair, Andrew Ferguson, on Wednesday saying that under his tenure, the agency will aggressively enforce a newly formalized and tougher rule designed to protect children's privacy online, and notably called on Congress to strengthen relevant federal laws. This is the same Congress that passed a bill that would restrict states from being able to pass any sort of AI laws for 10 years. Yeah, someone actually snuck that in there. An effort to make such an update to COPA died in Congress last session, but was reintroduced in March. Get this done. My gosh, our lawmakers can't be this slow. Get this done. It's really, really simple. Bipartisan. Get it done. Reinforce our children's privacy online. These are tools that our kids are not ready. We see, I've talked about the sexual exploitation, the human trafficking, the stuff that goes on online. We have to toughen down. We have to crack down on the operators. Make sure we verify kids' age. Make sure we give parents more control. Make sure those tools are accessible to parents. The parents are able to do that. So, Congress, do your job. BidenCash cybercrime. The BidenCash marketplace has been seized, and approximately 145 dark web and clear web domains associated with the marketplace has been taken offline, according to the Department of Justice. In less than a year after it became operational, BidenCash became one of the top carding marketplaces between October of 2022 and February of 2023. 3.3 million stolen credit cards were published on BidenCash for free as a means to promote its services. So according to the DOJ, BidenCash had over 117,000 customers with more than 15 million payment card numbers and associated personal information traded on it. The marketplace generated 17 million in revenue through its operations. According to the DOJ, that's now down. And finally, 2 members of a group of cyber criminals named Vile were sentenced this week into hacking into the DEA web portal in an extortion scheme. According to the documents, Vile specializes in obtaining personal information about targets to harass, threaten, and extort them in a practice known as doxing. The defendants impersonated law enforcement, illegally accessed government databases, and even faked life-threatening situations to bypass criminal procedures through which they could obtain sensitive personal information. They threatened innocent victims' livelihoods and were found to have joked about their deceptive, exploitive, and calculated scheme in messages with each other. 21-year-old Sagar Stephen Singh, also known as Weep, from Pawtucket, Rhode Island, was sentenced to 27 months for aggravated identity theft and conspiracy to commit computer intrusion. A 26-year-old Nicholas Sorello, also known as the Convict Anon or Omnibus, from Queens, New York, received a 25-month sentence for the same charges. So in this 2 years, the internet's a bit safer. That's it for our show this morning. Tomorrow, the weekly summary of all the news is direct in your inbox. If you're a subscriber at cyberhubpodcast.com, make sure to do so. And then we'll be back on Monday at 9 a.m. with all the latest and greatest. Until then, have a great rest of your day, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. And most importantly, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.